today we will be looking at, the power of storytelling in advocacy and how to engage and mobilize. So as always, this is, I'm Dawn Bates. I'm a writer after being a reader first. And then after being a writer, I am an author coach and boutique publisher. That means I help you write your books. I help you do the research. I help you design and create the life that you love. I don't just help you with your writing, which would be a writing coach. I don't just help you with the publishing, which would be your book coach. I help you with all areas of your life. And that means I help you step up into being the leader you were born to be, or help you channel all your efforts and create a successful business from your book. Now, when I say a successful business, I'm not talking a huge conglomerate unless you really want to. It could be brand expansion. So an author coach is somebody who looks at the whole picture of being an author. It looks at the work-life balance. It looks at upskilling you, where you need to go. What is it you want, and how do you want to live your life? Or as I call it, life by design. So that's just a brief introduction of who I am and what an author coach is. And so, like I said, this week we're looking at the power of storytelling in advocacy, how to engage and mobilize. So we're going to be looking at crafting stories that call people into action, turning personal experience into collective empowerment, and writing with purpose, passion, and responsibility. Now, when I first posted and promoted this event, people laughed because I am not afraid to send up a rocket. I'm not afraid to light a fire under your ass. And I'm not afraid to call out the government. And as I said in a court case back in 2017, I am prepared to go to prison for telling the truth, then lie and give truth to other people's lies. So, and also a lot of my posts, when I share them on social media, they don't get a lot of engagement, but they do get me a lot of DMs and they do get me a lot of emails. So Pete, I also realized that sometimes when we are writing for advocacy, we are getting people to engage behind the scenes rather than publicly. Because unfortunately, we live in a world where we have cancel culture and people don't want their employers or their clients or their investors to see that they're aligned with something until they've built their confidence. So today is all about helping you build that confidence. So the first step in any kind of advocacy or writing or any kind of action, whether it is, putting your children in a school or taking them out of a school, whether it's starting a business or choosing a career, any area of your life, it's always great to understand why. Everyone in business goes on about Simon Sinek and the power of why. And the reason why it did so well is because it's absolutely important to understand why you're doing something. Why do you want to be an advocate, or as I call it, as an activist? And the reason why I choose activist is simply and purely because activism is an idea in action. So ism is idea, act is action, and so an idea in action. So activism, but I know that some people in different parts of the world or in certain career choices or industries, they prefer the word advocacy. And you have to understand why it's important to you. Because if you don't understand why these things are important to you, then you're not going to be able to write or speak to the people and bring them on board. So it's understanding what you are, we've heard of the phrase, live by the sword, die by the sword. So it's about understanding why this certain thing that you're writing about is important to you. What are you standing for? What are you standing against? What are you fighting for or fighting against? Or what are you highlighting? Because once we understand that, and we actually understand the intention behind everything. In Arabic, they always say about your niyyah. It's like everything starts with your niyyah, your intention. And whenever you start a new task, so for example, you're looking for a new home, it's like, okay, I want a home like this. I want it in this kind of area. And I am prepared to let go of attachment, because what we want you to be committed to the outcome, not attached to the journey. Those of you who have done certain training courses or coaching programs will understand about commitment and attachment. We always need to be committed to the outcome. So that, for example, you might be looking for a 3-bedroom home. It is just you, but you want a 3-bedroom home. You might want your office, and then you want your guest room, and then obviously you want your own room. It might be that you don't want a garden because you can't be doing with all the gardening, or you might have hay fever. And again, it's about looking at these things. What is your intention for you wanting to do these things? And the reason why I use something such as a home is because we need to make sure that we're in a safe environment whenever we're looking at any kind of activism or advocacy. We also need to know why. And when we use an example of a home as opposed to advocacy, it's because most people know what they want when they're looking for a home, but they're not quite sure what they're looking for when they do advocacy. So again, it's about using something, like I've said in previous trainings, looking at a metaphor or an analogy and actually then applying it to what it is that you're doing. And it might be that you're an advocate in a soft and gentle way. I'm not talking about the deodorant. So those who are in Britain will know what I'm referencing there, or of a certain age. I haven't used deodorant for nearly 15 years, so I wouldn't know about relevant common brands of deodorant. But anyway, you need to look at how you're going to do it, because if you're going all gung-ho and buller and china shop, which is sometimes my preferred method, it might not land with certain people. And it's about, okay, how are you going to help the people? Because once you understand how you want to help them and you understand who you're helping, then you actually get to understand what the best route is. And so, for example, if I am wanting to help children who have been really traumatized through civil war and genocide, such as the people from Rwanda or Palestine, then what we need to actually look at is what is the best way of dealing with that. The two very different cultures, the Rwandans and the Palestinians, they do things in a very different way. And so it's, again, look at how you can best serve them through your advocacy. It might be that you want to clean up the coral reefs. It might be that you want to educate people. How are you doing that? Are you giving your books to these courses and helping to rebuild the libraries of countries like Rwanda and Palestine, because the invading forces have absolutely stripped their culture of any kind of literature, which is an access to their history? How are you doing it? What are you doing? Are you putting books in schools? Are you going out there to teach the subject that you've been studying, that you're writing about? Are you going into policy? So again, looking at your intention and who you're helping and how best to help them, and understanding, is this something that you are willing to dedicate your life to? Is it something that you're willing to give your life for? Once we understand that, and we understand how committed we are, then we understand just how important this is and how long it's going to last. Because if you're not really committed and you're not really willing to go the whole hog, as some people would say, you're not really willing to go the distance, then is it really what you want? Oh, my son's just walked in with a big box of tea bags. Game on. Slight tangent there. Be real. And this is the thing, when you're real and you're writing for advocacy and purpose and you want people to engage with you, you've got to be real. You've got to show your personality. And you've got to actually have people connect with you. Those of you who don't drink tea, not sure why not. It's great. But again, it's, why do you want people to act? Why do you want people to drink tea? Why do you want people to give up alcohol? Why do you want people to, why do you want landlords or banks to change their policies when it comes to housing people? And is the private sector creating more homelessness? Are we going to call the banks to task and the credit referencing agencies? Because we're seeing a huge amount of people becoming homeless here in Britain. because banks, insurance companies, and landlords are forcing people who would normally be in private residence onto social housing, which is actually then making those who really need social housing, is pushing them out into the streets. Again, what is your cause? How is your book going to help? Is your book going, are people, are the end users going to be reading your book, or are the policymakers going to be using your book? Is your book to get into every single bank? Is it to actually establish you as an expert? Who is reading it and why are they reading it? Because if you can write your story about how you became homeless, or how an operation went incorrect, went really badly wrong, have you been forced to hire a ghostwriter to write your story because a certain part of your brain is no longer functioning, so you cannot write? Are you looking at how you medical negligence? That, you know, we see it and hear it all the time, especially on some of those medical programs where things were left in somebody's body during the operation. You know, how are you going to be doing that? In my very first business, we used to produce the DVD evidence in courtrooms for lawyers. That was part of my advocacy. I would have, you know, my commercial clients, but then I would actually do a lot of work for charities. And again, how are you building that into what it is that you're writing? How are you looking at all the different ways in which you can become an activist or an advocate? And how are you building that into your book? How are you writing it in there? What examples are you using for the relevant audience? Because it might be that you're using case studies and you're putting legal precedents in there because you want to show people that you have done your homework, that you're not just someone who's actually having a rant. You're not just spewing a hatred. What are people going to learn? So, for example, when I wrote Crossing the Line, which we're now going back to release in a second version, a second edition, because a lot of my readers had questions. So, like, well, what happened then? Because I gave so much information, and now we're splitting it into two books. There was evidence in there of racism on the west coast of Scotland. We were looking at police and systemic prejudice against single women, single mums. We were looking at, you know, there was evidence in there of racism for mixed race, mixed ethnic ethnicity families. So again, what are we putting, and how is all of this information that you're gathering with the social conditions, the cultural ideas, how are these layering and building for your argument or for your activism? And how is that going to bring in people from different areas? Because again, when you're looking at writing your book, you want to be bringing in lots of different advocates from different areas. So you want to be getting the public on board. You might want to be getting the legal eagles on board. You want to get the media on board. How are you pulling them in with what you're writing in your book? Because if it is all just legal jargon, you're going to switch off a lot of people. If it's all about medical negligence and horror stories and, you know, the trauma of living through a genocide, you know, you're going to be cutting off some very key people, because that might be something that they deal with all the time. They don't really want to be dealing with it in their spare time. I mean, who has spare time these days? Again, so how is it relating to multiple people that your subject impacts? How is it relating to their loved ones? How are you bringing in, because people that could be your biggest advocates? Because one of the things I'm learning as I study for my PhD, which is all about the anthropology of activism and how it's trauma informed, we're looking at people who are becoming advocates. It's because it's either happened directly to them or to a loved one. And how are you going to stand up, and how is what you're doing impacting society? Because if we're looking at say like the homelessness issue, how is that impacting the children? How is that impacting their learning? How is that impacting businesses? How is that impacting the GDP of the country? And how is that impacting the way in which the general public see the government and their incompetence? So again, look at those ripple effects. I think I've just got ahead of myself completely, because as you can tell, I love this subject. So again, look at the big picture, look at that ripple effect. And as you just heard, I mentioned about the tea as my son walked in with a big box of tea bags. Share who you are. because when we get vulnerable and we share from our heart space, and when we share our own struggles and our own fears, that makes us human. That makes us relatable. It also shows that we're not, I mean, I have a phrase, and those of you who are offended by swearing, well, um, I do have a phrase about how some people's heads are so far up their own arse, their head is back up on their shoulders. Now, these people, you know, they're a lot of the time it's because they're afraid to be vulnerable. It's because they feel that they have to put this huge ego on display, and for them to be vulnerable is incredibly difficult. Maybe they were bullied as a child, not just by other kids in school, but by their parents. And so we have to understand how us showing our vulnerability and our fears and our confusions and our loss or our pain can actually help other people relate to us and go, you know what? I understand now why this is important. I understand now why Dawn speaks about this, or Joe speaks about this, or Sarah speaks about this, or Annika speaks about this. We've really got to look at how we can draw people in, because it might be that we're talking to the converted or preaching to the choir, as some people would say. We don't want to be in an echo chamber. We don't want people blowing smoke up our ass and going, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. We want people to challenge what we're doing, but we also want people to, because when we're challenged, that helps us step up. When we receive hatred, they just give us free content. It's like, yeah, you're hating on me, but hey, I'm just going to alchemize that and actually use your hatred to say, this is what is going on. This person is hating because I know I'm touching a nerve. And then understand, why am I touching a nerve with that person? Look at why that person might be really triggered about what you're writing about, and actually use that and go, actually, they don't like me speaking about, let's say, rape, because it might have happened to their daughter, it might have happened to them. It might be that they've been charged or accused of it when they were innocent. And again, why are they doing it? Look at that. Why is it that this is happening? Because when we start to understand the negativity that comes our way, um, it might just be that we are that release that they need. They need to get angry about it. And some haters could become some of your biggest allies. So again, share who you are, own your voice, really speak from the heart, and don't be worried about the grammar police. Do not worry about, um, you know, getting it grammatically correct. Show your colloquialisms, show your regional accents, share your idiom, share the idioms, just like idiosyncrasies. Just be who you are, because the thing is, it's like when people hear you talking, whether that's in a vlog, or whether that's on a podcast, or in the media, or people know you from the local community, or school playground, or at work, when they read your book and they can hear you, they're going to feel a lot more at ease. And if, for example, I think I mentioned last week or the week before, if someone has been hearing you speak and then they buy your book, and your book is written in a very different way to the way you write, sorry, the way you speak, there's a disconnect and they can't trust that. Whether they believe they do on a conscious level, but it's all about the subconscious that we're dealing with. And one of the great things about writing a book, and this was one of the biggest things that challenged me when I first started writing all those years ago, was sometimes when you're writing something down, you go, oh, if I really truly believe this, then I have to use, so for example, it's like, if I truly believe in freedom, and freedom of speech, I have to be willing to allow other people to say things and share who they are and what their beliefs are, even if it upsets me, because otherwise I don't believe in freedom of speech. If I believe in freedom of full self-expression, and I don't like, for example, somebody, so for example, we're seeing across the world now, we're seeing a lot of women who don't like to see men dressed as women. They don't want to see men in the female toilets. that if we believe in freedom of full self-expression, but we don't allow that, do we really believe in full self-expression? And this is the thing, when you write things down in your book, or you're writing things in your manuscript, but actually, rather than your book, um, when you're writing your manuscript, it's always good to check in with your logic. Because if you're writing something down about the way you see the world and how you want something to happen in situation A, does that logic follow through? To use a computer programming, and this is, you know, if you're going to develop a piece of software or a system for one person, it has to work for 10 people, it has to work for 100 and 1,000 and 1,000,000. Your logic has to be pure. Your logic has to be sound. And if your thoughts and your values and the things that you're writing do not align with a logical process, or you're contradicting yourself all the way through, people aren't going to trust you. So when you get confronted, it's an opportunity for you to go deep, deepen your knowledge of yourself, of your belief systems, of your values. And when you do that, if you do get confronted by that, that's a great marketing post. That's a great way to engage people and go, you know what, I was writing this and I got really challenged, but that allowed me to do this. And I know that my readers are going to do it, and I'm going to keep it in, and I'm going to share the journey. And again, that's one of the ways you can bring people in. You don't, if you're writing a book that's got legal implications, write about certain things that you're learning about yourself on the writing journey. Get people starting to be pulled in, because as I've just been saying to one client, there is no point just talking about the book, because if all you're doing is relying on the book, what are you going to do once the book has been published? You've got to build yourself. You've got to talk about yourself. You've got to talk about your journey, your challenges. You've got to talk about things that might relate to others. Now, lots of people that follow me know I'm a sailor. They know I love the ocean. Share pictures. So I share pictures of me sailing. I share pictures of my dog. I share pictures of books that I'm reading, because then people get to know me, they get to trust me, they get to go, oh, she likes sailing, I like sailing, brings us together. Oh, she likes a cup of tea. What tea does she drink? Well, it's a bit of Yorkshire tea. Those of you who are outside of England, if you don't know Yorkshire tea, you really should know Yorkshire tea, but not builder's tea. There's a difference. And Sheffield tea is a whole other thing. Those in Britain who drink tea know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, then you'll have to come and understand, or just dismiss it. Again, these are ways in which we can get people to engage. We might be talking about a really harsh subject, but if we can make somebody smile along that journey, or we can make people giggle, bit of giggle therapy, it's always good. I like a bit of giggle therapy every day. But again, it's a great way of getting people to get involved and, find out what it is. And if you say, I'm looking for help on this, or I need extra research on this, it's giving people opportunities to help you. It's about getting them involved along the journey. And what you're then going to find, if you say, I need help with this and I need help with that, or I'm struggling to find evidence for this or research, you tend to find that people start referring people to you. And then you're going to see that people make suggestions of how, well, this would be a good idea. Maybe you could write a training course and then roll it out to universities or further education. You might want to make a journal. So, for example, with Tough to Talk, Steve, the founder of Tough to Talk, he goes out and does tough talks. He talks about his own journey, but they're also creating online courses so that people can do. It's like check in with your mental health, check in with things that are happening. It might be that, so for example, with Beth, she's talking about parenting. It might be that she's actually then going to go along to these parenting events, running conferences, doing online summits. How is your activism going to happen? Or your advocacy? But it's about understanding. I'm getting ahead of myself now. I have to bring myself back. How does what you're advocating for happen? Understanding these root causes, because one of the things that might happen is, with Beth and her book, like it's talking about parenting and dealing with your unresolved issues. But if we can get kids talking about certain things going on in their lives, and again with Steve, if we can, understand where the mental health issues and the thoughts of suicide come from, if we can identify those and get kids in schools talking, then hopefully adults won't have as many mental health issues. When we look at the causes of things, that we all know that poverty is one of the biggest causes of mental health issues and childhood neglect, which then lead to mental health issues later in life, and homelessness, and a lack of learning and a lack of intelligence, which impacts the ability to get a job, which impacts the workforce, which impacts GDP, etc., etc. So again, it's about understanding where are these issues that we're seeing in society coming from, and what is causing it. These, we can't just look at it in the here and now. We've got to go, okay, well, if this keeps happening, what are going to be the implications, the direct implications? And then when you get to that, it's like a tree, you know that things are going to branch off. And then what happens off that branch? And then when you've gone along that branch, what's going to happen on those twigs? What are the twigs? What are the leaves? To use a tree of knowledge as an excellent metaphor. Well done, me. Um, And look at what's happening in the media. Are the media covering a consequence of what it is that you're talking about? Are they talking about the causes? Are they going deep enough in their journalism? Are they being responsible with their journalism? We at an event recently, we were talking, one of the ladies in attendance was talking about how you only know someone has taken their life by suicide. Like the BBC, they hate talking about it, absolutely hate talking about it. They'll run the story, someone died, blah, 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 blah. If you're having problems with your mental health, then please contact the Samaritans, or they please contact. And it's just a footnote. They're not actually using their platform to speak about the challenges. They're not using their platform to actually advocate for something great. They're just talking about the bad news. No, let's talk about the causes. Let's deal with them. Okay, so again, looking at, yes, this problem is occurring, but how can we offer the solutions? Are we going to go onto the radio and talk about it? Let's call the BBC out. Let's call ITV or CNN or Fox News. Whether you like Tucker Carlson or not, the guy has got a great platform. Whether you like Joe Rogan or not, great platform. He's going to go there. They're going to ask the questions. They're going to go up against the government. They are going to show you and get experts on, and they're going to invite people to talk about the things the mainstream media don't. Can you find a podcasting platform like podcastguest.com? Radio guest list? There are opportunities for you to actually get out there in the media without going mainstream. And one of the biggest questions I get asked about writing books of an advocacy nature is, should I use my name or should I use a pseudonym? And would it be better to write this as fiction or as nonfiction? Now, one of my absolute favorite authors of all time, oh my god, like proper fangirling, Elif Shafak. She writes books of a really heavy nature, like really, well, the subjects are, but she writes them as fiction, whereas I tend to write them as nonfiction. And we both go down rabbit holes, and she's a really lovely woman. I had the opportunity to meet with her both on a Zoom and in person this last year. Bought far too many of her books, if there is such a thing. But again, are you writing it? If you write it as nonfiction, are you losing a huge market? If you were to write your story as a piece of fiction and use a pseudonym, you're protecting yourself and your family, but you're probably reaching a huge wider audience than if you write nonfiction and you use your own name. Now, I made a conscious decision recently to keep writing nonfiction and my own name. I hadn't really thought about it when I first started writing the books. And it's been a bit of a journey, because I know that if I wrote fiction, I'd sell a lot more books. Because people like to read about things from a distance. They don't like it to be up close and personal. But there is a huge amount of people that are the action takers, that are the policy changers, that are the leaders in the world and the universities that will buy the non-fiction books for their students, for their work. So again, it's where is your advocacy taking place? Is it taking place in the masses, or are you writing for the people who have got your audience? You know, are you, again, in business, are you selling to the end user, or are you selling to the person who's got your end users? Again, other people's platforms. How are you doing it? And if you are writing, it doesn't matter whether it's fiction or whether it's non-fiction, is there an element of a pity party? Because so many people love a pity party. They love being, oh, poor me, woe is me. Life is so bad. Life is so hard. And then everything's happening to me. No, people, things don't happen to you. And when you sit in the space of things are happening to you rather than through you, and not even for you, and understanding those three distinctions, you can step out of your pity party. You can step into your power. You can look at your anger and understand that anger is a third emotion, often the second or third emotion. What comes before that? What comes before those feelings of anger? Is it feeling disappointed? Is it resentment? Is it jealousy? Is it fear? Is it pain somewhere in your body? And again, how can you tap into this to write from a powerful place, and actually identify lots of positive ways of overcoming or channeling what it is that you're doing? Because advocacy, although we are highlighting some pretty dire situations, like I said, whether it's terminal illness, whether it's medical negligence, whether it's government corruption and incompetence, whether it's a homelessness issue, whether it is you know, changing, getting the food companies to stop putting things in our food that causes an acidic environment, which is a fabulous breeding ground for cancer. Or are we calling out these cancer research organizations that are committing corporate manslaughter? Because we know there's a cure for cancer, but they keep saying we're researching it. Well, just highlight and propagate the cures for cancer. Stop the FDA and the food standards putting toxic food and creating processed food, which creates addiction, which then creates lots of other issues. Processed food has created obesity, and it's created so many problems within our bodies and within society. Again, if we're going to change the top level, where are we doing it? And we can't keep telling people you're eating shit food and you're destroying and killing yourself, because some people aren't going to listen to that. It's about drip feeding that education, bull in a china shop, or softly catch a monkey. Are you going to be doing, like, creating your own product, something that you can educate people about, such as the plastic sponges? Do you use plastic sponges, and do you realize that some of them only work for a month if you're lucky, and then they go into landfill and they take decades, if not centuries, to break down? Or are you going to use a kitchen cloth that's made out of plastic, or one out of cotton? People went off using ones out of cotton because they became quite discolored. They chose the plastic versions of them because they looked better, but they're actually more harmful for the planet than the cotton ones. And you can just stick them in the wash, they'll be grand. Again, look at what it is that you're creating and how you can identify these things. Make those small changes. Are you creating the charity? Do you need to get a board of directors or board of trustees, a legal formation? Are you creating an education academy? Are you going to be doing, like I've said here, are you creating a consultancy or a range of products and services? And what skills do you have, and which skills do you need to learn to actually drive this forward? Because writing a book, especially one on an advocacy level, isn't just about writing a book. You need to know about the business formation. You need to know about contracts and law and finances. You need to learn about how to market and sell. And you need to know how to engage marketing and PR in the media. It's not just about doing it on social media and creating a TikTok video, although they can be very useful. Not that I've ever tried a TikTok video. I'm not on TikTok. Look at what your skill sets are, because it might be that you need to get somebody else on. I've written here, how are you going to advocate? How are you going to reach them? Um, are you going to write emails? Are you going to write a blog or create your vlogs on your TikTok or on YouTube or all these other planets? Are you going to be creating events and doing PR around them? And who are you bringing on board? And for example, I know that several people created Zoom events, and when Zoom security settings, when they first came out, weren't so great, people could just jump into a Zoom and be quite vulgar or actually overtake a video and hijack it. And, people, are these people in your audience? Are they really on your side? So, for example, when we see a lot of activism and a lot of protests, we see, I say Baltagi, which are paid police thugs. Baltagi is an Arabic word. So when I was writing Wallahi, which was about living in Egypt during the uprising, what we saw was a lot of paid thugs, police thugs, creating problems to actually turn people against the real protesters. We're seeing it with the Palestinian protests, where you've got people that are working with the government and the media to actually turn people against the Palestinian protesters about the genocide that's happening there. And we've got to actually understand, are we having similar people within our advocacy? Are the people who say they support us really there to support us? Or are they there to derail us? And are they doing it blatantly? Or are they the silent assassins? We need to know who our enemies are. Like they say, keep your enemies closest. But again, once you start to do that, it teaches you a lot about yourself. There's a song that I should have trusted my trust issues. Great song. And a good reminder. The reason why we get that really funny feeling in our tummy is our intuition is telling us that something is off. I remember my first business. There were two people that my ex-husband had invited into the business into the office to do business with. And as soon as they left, I went, we're not doing business with them. You need to get rid. We're not doing it. He goes, but they're really, I don't care how big the contracts are. We're not doing business with them. I have a sixth sense, not doing business. He ignored me. We ended up in courtrooms. We won, of course. But again, no, listen to yourself, listen to your higher consciousness, listen to your intuition, and look at how what is showing up in your body is telling you if it's a good thing or not. Your heart is one of your biggest navigators. If it doesn't feel good, if your chest feels tight, there's anxiety, explore it. Like I said, do that skills inventory, because when you know where you're going, so for example, you don't really want me to be doing a video log. I'm not a video logger. I mean, I've just sailed around the world and I've probably got about 1,000 photos. I'm not interested in taking photos of my private life or creating a video of my private life, because it's called a private life for a reason. So I'm also not very good at editing videos. So that's the other thing. Anyone who has seen any of my videos will see them shaking all over the place, and then I get distracted. And so know what you're good at and delegate the rest. An age-old saying, but you don't want me cutting your hair ever, unless you've got you've got a grade 1 all over. I'm pretty good at a grade 1 all over. Ask my sons, ask my dog. I can groom my dog, but I'm not going to cut her toenails. Again, know what you're good at, because I'm not an accountant. I can't do financial forecasting, but I know what I want to achieve. I know how much money I need for it. I know how much profit I need to make, and I know how to deliver. Again, you don't want me doing graphic design. I am never going to design your book cover. I have a Jerry, and Jerry is so lovely. We all need a Jerry in our lives, whether it's for graphic design or not. I call him the legend that is Lampson. But again, look at what you're doing. And are you going to have a Jerry in your life, somebody who is there for you and will stand, he's a ride or die kind of guy. We all need a ride or die. Or are they going to be the Baltagis that, you know, a wolf in sheep's clothing, as I say. Not living in Wales, I live in the land of magic and tasty clouds. Sorry to all the vegans out there, but not really sorry. I do love a bit of lamb. I had a leg of lamb at the weekend. Okay, so moving on from that. Again, looking at, you know, like I've just said, have you got that protective bubble? Have you got a Jerry in your life? Have you got some like people there that are going to help you, well, protect you from yourself at times? There have been times when Jerry's going, you're not writing that on a blurb. I'm not putting that on the back of your book, Dawn. I'm like, why not? He goes, come on, seriously, Dawn. We need a Jerry. We need those protective bubbles around us, the one from ourselves. I put Shield of Steel. Those of you who are roughly my age, you'll remember Batfink. His wings are like a shield of steel. Looking at the sanity checks, you know, how am I keeping my sanity? You know, we're turning up to a lot of Zoom meetings recently, and we're seeing people walking on treadmills. That would do my head in. I mean, it makes me feel like I want to fall off my chair watching them. I'm like, well, just switch off your laptop and go for a walk. Go for a proper walk, going out into the park or along the river, or just get out in nature. Get away from your laptop. Sanity checks. Make sure that, because what's happening when you step away and you just go for a walk and you're not listening to anything but the bird song, your subconscious gets to work. You're giving yourself that time to just decompress. And when you decompress, that's why we do meditations, why we do yoga. You know, take a breath, set the intention. What is it that you want to do? Because when you take that breath, that builds your strength in lots of different ways. It builds your resilience. You know, you need that. And it's also like, you know, what is it that's causing me anxiety? What's causing the pressure? Okay, I need a coach. I need someone to help me. Is it the fact that you've been trying to write a book for God knows how long, and you haven't hired someone like myself as your author coach that's going to hold you accountable? You know, that, like I mentioned before, Al had been writing his book and researching his book for a number of years. He starts working with me and it's done in 6 months. We're going to get the book done. I'm going to help you with the research. I'm going to hold you accountable. I want this chapter done by the next week. I want this much done. You know, what is your support system? What are the timelines that you're going to be working to when you set up your advocacy, when it's whether your business or your charity, or whether it's, you know, your academy? What timelines have you put in place? Are they realistic? Now, realistic to you is not going to be realistic to somebody else. I get told all the time, be realistic, Dawn. I'm like, yeah, I just sailed around the world in 10 years, wrote 21 books, learned 5 languages, and did it all by myself and built a 6-figure business. That's not realistic to a lot of people. You know what's realistic for you. Set your timelines and just, you know, be uncertain, and step into that uncertainty and that discomfort, because that's where the magic happens. That's where the universe gets to work. You are not there to figure out the how. All you have to figure out is, what is your intention? What is your book about? What are you prepared to stand for? And what are you prepared to lose? Because when you put this support system around you and you have got realistic timelines, because I mean, it's like, you can't say, well, I'm going to get this book written by next week if you're waiting on a court verdict. You're in the hands of the civil service. Come on, seriously. You're in the hands of lawyers that want you to back and forth, back and forth. That in and of itself is probably going to take you a year dealing with civil servants. You know, again, no disrespect to civil servants, but they have to work within a big, huge, convoluted system that's got a lot of red tape. And then, you know, you've got to reply to something by 30 days. And then there's another 30 days. And you're already at 3 months before you've even exchanged 2 letters. So again, look at things, be kind to yourself, because if you are really going to do anything for advocacy, you need to be playing the long game. It's not about the right here, right now. This is long game stuff. And also, as I just said at the very beginning, what are you prepared to go to prison for? I when I was fighting Police Scotland and they tried to bribe me with a deal, it's a bribe. I mean, seriously. Oh, we'll drop this if you admit to this. No, I was prepared to go to prison for telling the truth, not to give, and I was not going to lie to give truth to somebody else's lies. No way. I'd rather go to prison. I would still be in prison now if I'd have given truth to their lies. I'd have been like, not happening. I would rather go to prison than lie. And that's quite a statement to make. I know that, and I live by that. And it's about, what are you prepared to live by? What does your word actually mean? What is the worst case scenario for you not doing what you say you're going to do? What is the worst case scenario for you not writing this book or developing this advocacy? But what's also the best? Are you going to be able to save someone's life? Are you going to be able to save someone an absolute fortune? Or are you going to be able to save their mental health? Or are you going to get a law changed? Because remember, those of us who are seen as the craziest have actually been some of the biggest game changers the world has ever seen. Those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, every Wednesday I highlight a different woman who's actually changed the game for women and men the world over throughout history. What's very interesting about that, though, is the amount of people who do not know which women inspire them. It's like every week we ask for people to mention which women inspires them, which women do they look up to through history. And do you know what? Very, very few. We've been doing it for 6 months. We've had 3 people nominate another woman. How sad is that? How sad is that people cannot think of an inspiring woman and actually be willing to name them and the reasons why? So what's the worst that's going to happen? What's the best that can happen? But what's most likely to happen given the context of everything? So that is today. I hope that you have gained a lot from that. I love doing this subject. I could talk about this forever, but then I could probably talk about a lot of things forever. I need to figure out how I'm going to share this. I need to get that down, because remember, if you are gaining something from this, and you do want to spend 45 minutes with me so we can talk about your book and what your vision might look like, then you can go along to authors.youcanbook.me. That address is changing because we're switching over to a new CRM system. We're just sorting out all the technicalities, but for now, go to authors.youcanbook.me and all of the videos will be updated. There are appointments available. We've got 2 on Monday next week. No, the 2nd of June at 4 and 5 o'clock. And then on a Thursday, we've got 3 appointments available. These are going quite quickly, though, which is really nice. I'm really, really so grateful to all of you who are choosing to book a session with me. I am really, really grateful to that. If you are someone who's a bit of a lone wolf, there's Al. And, you've got lots of testimonials on my LinkedIn as well as here on my website. But if you are somebody who wants to work alone, you want to work through things, you want to get things in place, then do consider my 7-week author course. There are like the 7 modules there. And if you want to go into more details, it does actually drop down. And the 7-week author course, it's not just about writing a book. It's not just about the publishing process. It's about your whole life. It tackles everything from your values and your morals and your money story, your whether you want to do logistics or whether you want to buy in bulk, what accolades you're going to go after, how you're going to make money, and basically how you're going to live your life as an author. So that course, I absolutely poured my life and soul into it. Anyone who works with me on a one-to-one basis actually gets this complimentary. And if you are booking a manuscript assessment with me, then you also get a copy of my 7-week author course drip fed into your inbox every week for 7 weeks. So that is week 6 all wrapped up, hopefully with a nice bow. So if those of you that are watching on the replay, you want to ask any questions, then please do drop me an email, visit the website, go to the contact page. Kai will be sharing the video. For those of you who have registered but have not been able to make it today, you will receive the recording along with information on how to book a session with me. And we've got some very exciting things coming up. We've got the DBI Lovers of Literature community, free community. And then we've also got the DBI Author Academy that will be launching very soon as well. So that actually allows other people who cannot afford me on a one-on-one basis, but actually do want to learn from me. We're actually building a community for you at a much, much reduced rate. So stay tuned. We've got lots coming your way. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up now so that those of you who are on live can actually join me for the private Q&A session. So thank you very much for joining, and do let me know if I can support you in any other way. Take care. Bye-bye.